I'd like to convene the July 6, 2021 Single Family Design Board. However, not all of the board members are present at this time, so I'd like to call a brief break until all board members are present. Okay. like to reconvene the Single Family Design Board now that we have a quorum. So let's go through, let's have a roll call, please.
Thank you. I'll now start the roll call. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Kalas,
Here.
Board Member Klein is absent. Board Member Motisha.
Here.
Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item A for public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for the public discussion. Ted, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you would like to give verbal public comment, please follow the instructions on screen. And this is if you're attending by webinar. While we wait for hands to raise, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence today?
We received one written correspondence from Janice and Jim Knight, and that was distributed to the board prior to this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do see a number of attendees in the audience, but I don't see any hands raised for general correspondence for items not on today's agenda. So Mr. Chair and board members, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Single Family Design Board meeting for June 21st, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I
Let's
have comments.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
They're a little bit fastidious. I apologize, but in the interest of being a professional board, page 3 of 6, item 4, under the motion for the 2436 De La Vina Street project. That should read, the CMU wall shall be finished with a steel troweled LED cat paw texture. Item 6, the word jam is improperly spelled. It is G-A-M-B.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one more item. On page 5 of 6, under the motion for San Miguel.
So, sorry, Colossus, let me interrupt you. Let me go through each item, and
Yep.
as I go down, then you could bring these up.
Okay.
That way that, you know.
Yep.
Because I thought you had a comment, but yeah, I'll go through each item and then you can bring up your comments.
Okay.
So let's go to item 1, please. 2436 De La Vina Street.
Mhm.
Any comments or changes?
So those were the 2 initial comments I made. Under item 4, it should read with a steel troweled ELLED cat paw fit texture.
Okay.
And item 6, the second sentence or the second portion of the sentence, it should read the exterior siding relates to head, comma, jam, spelled G-A-M-B.
Very good catches.
As opposed to strawberry.
Correct.
All right. All right. Those are your only comments for that project?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Item number 2, 116 Santa Cruz. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. Number 2, 712 Arbolado Road. Any comments or changes? Okay, I don't hear anything, so let's move on to the next project. $12.74 San Miguel.
I have a couple comments.
Yes.
Item number 4, I think would read better. The board finds that the gable elements need to include the word that before the word the. That's under item 4. And then item 6, clear story is improperly spelled. It should be CLERESTORY, all one word, please. And after the comma, where it says the chain link guardrails, it should be comma, and the following word should be and, not nor. There's a double negative in that sentence, which could be construed improperly.
Very good.
You're great.
Item number 4, 229 San Clemente. Any comments or changes, please? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the next project. Seeing that that is the final project, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, and I'll start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Matisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item C, the approval of the consent calendar for June 28th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I move.
Second?
I second it.
All right, thank you. Ted, could you please go through the projects?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So for this agenda, 241 San Clemente was item A, and the motion was for project design approval and final approval with comments. Then item B, 2001 Stanwood Drive, the motion was for project design approval with comments. Item C, 881 Paseo Ferrello, the motion was for project design approval with comments. Okay, thank you. And the members reviewing were Board Member Kalas and Klein.
All right, thank you. Hearing no comments or changes, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I will now start the roll call. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Matisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to July 6th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Ted, if you so please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Today's reviewers were Board Members Kalas and Klein. And item A was 234 Remeto Road, which received project design approval and final approval with comments. Then item B was 934 Camino Viejo Road. Motion was for project design approval with comments. And then item C was 845 Sea Ranch Drive, and the request for review after final approval was granted. And I believe that was all.
All right, thank you very much. May I have a roll call, please?
I will now begin the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, any future agenda items and appeals. Ted, did we have any of those? I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we did. Sorry, it just took me a second to get to my microphone there. Staff does have an announcement. We do have a new member of SFDB who is being onboarded right now. So just like to announce that Ohan Arakelian, and they will correct me if I mispronounce his name, has been appointed to SFDB by council, and he needs to complete his orientation and be sworn in before he can participate in the meetings. We anticipate that happening by either the next meeting or the one after that. So we are excited to have Mr. Arakelian on the board and look forward to him reviewing projects.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to item E, subcommittee reports. I believe we have none at this time, if that's not correct. So with that said, let's move on to our item number 1, 691 North Hope Avenue. This is a returned item for requesting project design approval. It's a proposal for 6 new single-unit residents on a 2-acre lot that recently received approval to be subdivided and annexed into the city of Santa Barbara. The project includes demolition of 1 existing single-unit residence and construction of a new public road, sidewalk, parkway, and other infrastructure improvements. Accessory dwelling units are proposed for lots 1 and 6. Project design approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings, and the project was last reviewed May 24th, 2021. Ms. Kalas, do we have minutes from the previous meeting, please?
Looks like Ted was kind enough to pull them up for us. Would you care for me to read those?
Yes, if you could put it in the record, that'd be great.
Okay. The motion was for the project to be continued indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. The board appreciated the efforts of the applicant to introduce neutral colors, sloped roofs, and wood siding to the project in an effort to be more compatible with the neighborhood, as well as the minor reductions in size that were presented at that time. The board still found that the project was incompatible from a floor to lot area ratio with the immediately surrounding neighborhood as defined in the November 23rd, 2020 single-family design board meeting minutes as being Hope Avenue, Connie Way, and Penn Place. The project shall be reduced in size to meet the 85% guideline FAR. The applicant shall consider materials that are more consistent with the neighborhood. The applicant shall consider looking at 3814 Connie Way, the project at the corner of Lacumba Road and Pueblo, or the Willow Glen and Grove neighborhoods as possible archetypes for consideration. The applicant shall address the privacy questions and concerns between the neighboring existing homes and the proposed development. The applicant shall further clarify the privacy issues as requested during the November 23rd, 2020 single-family design board meeting, which was to, quote, provide more information in order to understand any potential privacy issues between adjacent neighbors, end quote. The applicant shall address the conflict between the gravel basins and the planting plans. The sandstone material is not compatible with the neighborhood in the manner it was being used. And the board anticipates that they will be requesting story poles for each lot with a 2-story element as part of the project approval in the future. The action was initiated by Colas, seconded by Ziegler, and the motion carried 5-0 to 1 with 1 opposition from board member Motisha.
Great, thank you very much. I would like to ask the client presenting the project to, when presenting your projects, to address the minutes due to sake of time concerns as to how you addressed each of the items that were spoken on the minutes. So thank you very much. And if Mr. Pikert, if you'd like to present your project.
Thank you, Chair Miller.
Actually, Mr. Chair, this is Kathy Kennedy, project planner on the project. I just wanted to jump in real quick with the intro.
Yes.
As you know, you received a very thorough memo prepared by SFDB staff for this item. I'm hoping everyone looked through it. It was gave a lot of background in regard to the project and what this project's been through over the years, from the Planning Commission approval, City Council approval, more recently, the LAFCO approval for the annexation.
Yes.
And actually, there was one other hearing, the first one back in 2018, which was a concept review before the Planning Commission when they initiated annexation. So this project has been through many hearings. throughout those hearings, there have been many discussions about drainage in the area and also about the traffic and safety issues, and those have been resolved at the Planning Commission level. And I bring this up because it was addressed in the public comment letter that you received. So I just wanted to just remind you of that. And one other thing that came up in the public comment letter was the public records request that was made. We get a number of these, of course, at the city, and we did receive it for this project. It is in the middle of being processed now. Staff has been pulling together all the information. I'm not sure the timing of it because it's handled by other staff members, but that is occurring now. And this, though, should not have any effect on your hearing today.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. I have a question regarding that report that you showed. Is that access to the public?
The memo, yes, it's on the SFDB website.
Okay, great. So that's kind of important that the public, it has public access to that report. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you, Chair Miller, board members. We're pleased to be back today to review this project and once again seek design approval for the project. We agree that in-person meetings would be nice in the future. I think it's lends itself to a more interactive kind of process. We're all looking at the drawings and can flip back and forth more easily, so that'll be interesting and something to look forward to. I also look forward to welcoming Oham to the board. I think he's going to make a great addition to the board. So again, we're seeking design approval today. We're going to keep this presentation very simple. We want to go we're not going to go through each of the 69 sheets. You're already familiar with them. We certainly went through them quite thoroughly in the last meeting. We're going to focus on two things. One of them is to address, of course, the comments in the minutes very specifically. We're going to walk through that. But before we do, we want to take a few minutes just to go through the neighbor letter that was submitted and that we reviewed and took very seriously and reviewed carefully. And we went through a process of addressing all of their comments. So we're going to go through that fairly quickly and briefly. Rachel Rayner is going to be doing that. I want to just add one other comment here before Rachel takes over. We put a lot of work into making significant changes. Probably the most important of those is that we've reduced the floor areas of all the 6 houses to below 85% of the FAR. And we reduced the height of every building to below 25 feet. So that's all documented in the drawings that you have, and you can look at any of those drawings at any time. But I also want to mention that we did not significantly change the design style of the buildings. They're still in a contemporary styling, similar to what you saw at the last meeting. This is the style of a home that the owners of the property want to live in. And we think it's an appropriate style. The homes all came out looking great, beautiful, if you will. The homes are designed in the sort of natural materials that we've shown in our materials board, et cetera. And I think they'll be a handsome addition to the neighborhood. And they're consistent with the idea that there is no particular design theme in these neighborhoods. It's very, very eclectic. You see all kinds of homes, including quite a number of contemporary styled homes. And that's pretty much a trend that we're seeing these days. People want to live in 21st century, more contemporary homes, contemporary living. And that's what we're still proposing. But we do feel very strongly that the design is very well executed in these beautiful materials that we selected. And we're happy to, once again, answer questions about that and hopefully satisfy you that this is an appropriate response in this neighborhood. Finally, I just want to say one other thing, and that is every home in this neighborhood has the right to add a second story to their homes. They also have a right to add an additional dwelling unit to their homes. So they're all being held to the same standard as we are. But I want to point out that one error in the neighbor's letter indicating that 64% of the homes were two-story, the fact is that only about 20% of the overall square footage, including the garages, is actually on a second story, 20%. And actually, if you take just the net area and exclude the garages, you would still only rise to about 24% of the homes as two-story. So I just wanted to kind of point that out and emphasize it so that we're all on the same page when it comes to discussing that aspect of it. So at this point, I would like to ask Rachel to go ahead and walk through the neighbors' letters and hopefully provide responses. And I emphasize that we did in that letter invite the neighbors once again to reach out to us to have a discussion if that was something that they felt would be valuable. We would certainly, we're willing to meet in person or remotely, and we didn't get any response from the neighbors. So, but we do have this letter. So go ahead, Rachel, please.
Thank you, Duddy. I will try and keep it brief to stay within our time frame. I think Duddy did a great summary of the comments, and thank you, Ted, for having that up on your screen. I think the first comment that we wanted to respond to was compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Just wanted to take a quick minute to talk about what we're defining as our neighborhood, which is that quarter-mile or 5-minute walk radius in all directions of our site. You can see on that page 4 of the full-size site, or excuse me, full-size package, that's page 4. It's the neighborhood study where we reference the different other two-story homes and homes that exceed that 85% FAR within that neighborhood. And so we just wanted to take a quick minute to define what we're using as our neighborhood definition. And then I think, as Duddy pointed out, you can go back to the letter, Ted, page 2. And then I just wanted to take a quick minute to, we're looking at the different styles that are found within the neighborhood. And it is really an eclectic, diverse range of architectural styles found, with not one dominant architectural style. And that those include ranch, craftsman, Spanish, eclectic or nondescript, and modern styles. On the subsequent pages, starting on page 3 of this PDF, you'll see a couple photos we included from Google Street View that show other 2- and 1-story contemporary or modern styles that can be found within that 1,200 foot, or excuse me, that quarter-mile walking distance from our project site. So you can flip through the next page. Just wanted to show a couple examples that are found within our neighborhood. You can flip to the next page, Ted. And the next one. There should just be one more after that. The next point we wanted to mention or talk about is privacy. Duddy already mentioned the below 30% of portions of that are above 2 or that are 2 stories. We included a quick table for each lot that is actually 2 stories. It's not a majority of the footprint. The other point we wanted to make was that the maximum building height for each of the 6 lots has been reduced to less than 25 feet at the highest point, which is 5 feet less than the allowed 30% or 30-foot maximum. And then also note that each home or each lot will have adequate perimeter fencing and landscaping to help further address privacy issues and concerns from each home on each lot, and then also to the neighboring homes in the south. The next comment that we wanted to address was grading. Concerns that the grading plan will add fill to some lots, raising elevations above existing homes on Connie Way. Concern about the elevation of the new public road and how the grading plan will impact local stormwater runoff. The maximum height will be measured from the existing or finished grade, whichever is lower. The proposed grading plan and fill will not affect where height is measured from. We included a graphic from the city's municipal code that measures height and shows how that definition is characterized. On the next page, we show a street view image of Penn Place and the public street and how they're relatively consistent with one another in elevation. The new public road will be designed in the event that the properties along should the properties along Penn Place annex into the city, the new public road and Penn Place can be combined into one public road. We've also included the approved subdivision plan to show those that grading and topography across the site. The next, as Kathy mentioned, I'll keep it brief. The stormwater was addressed during the subdivision process, and we will be required to retain and the project site will be required to retain on site the volume or the stormwater difference between the pre and post project conditions. The stormwater design has been adequately sized and designed to treat and accommodate the overall drainage area in the neighborhood and improve the historical flooding issues for the properties along Connie Way and Penn Place. And lastly, the issue about safety. As part of the proposed project, a 30-foot right-of-way dedication will be provided along Hope Avenue, which includes reconfiguration of the sidewalk and planter, and which will connect to the crosswalk north of the site, providing connectivity to the elementary school. A visibility triangle will be retained on both sides of the new public road to maintain adequate sight for vehicles leaving the public road and allowing adequate visibility for those turning maneuvers. And I will head it over or give it over to Deddy so he can try and wrap us up.
Mr. Piker, you're muted.
Thank you. Again, we're going to try and keep this quite brief. I don't think there's any need to revisit the floor areas. The tables are, of course, in the full drawing set, and they're emphasized here. And you'll see that all of the 6 lots have been reduced in their FAR to below 85%, which was a specific request of the board. We went to significant effort to make that happen, and here are the statistics for that. Go to the next page, please. And this is point number 3. Again, really, it's just an emphasis of the 85% FAR. Point number 4 is the materials. And again, here's the materials board that we presented to you. We haven't really changed it. We really feel that these materials reflect a kind of natural materials of stucco, siding, stone. Even the roofing you saw in some of those photographs that that a lot of more contemporary homes do utilize metal roofing, and so we're kind of staying with that at the moment. But again, you get a feel for the style of architecture. I mean, it does have, some of the homes really do have a kind of contemporary Mediterranean character, but very much in keeping these materials with styles that we see throughout Santa Barbara. And I want to just say about the sandstone in particular, sandstone is kind of the signature Santa Barbara material, and we see it featured in just about every neighborhood around the city. in homes and commercial buildings, et cetera. And we're using that material here. And I think it adds, a wonderful sense of warmth and naturalness to the design and style of the homes. Next slide, please. So this one is important because we did discuss it briefly at the last meeting, but we wanted to show in a little bit more detail how we address the privacy issue, especially as they relate to the neighboring lots on Connie Way. You'll notice that there are 4 floor plans, and those are the second-story floor plans. And to the extent possible, we tried to orient the main windows of the homes towards the east and the west. But in some, and then those looking towards the south, towards the neighbors' properties, primarily high windows, smaller windows, et cetera, to try and preserve that privacy. In a couple of instances, we do have, lot 6, for example, we do have a window looking south, and then we have a window looking south on lot 4 as well. But in those cases, in one case, we're 58 feet back from the property line. The other case is 33 feet back. And we'll be planting significant screening in the bioswale area that will, preserve the privacy of those neighbors. And privacy from lot to lot within the project, we've taken attention there to locate windows so that they're not creating privacy issues. Also, they're offset vertically.
Excuse me,
There's
Mr.
one
Parker.
last slide.
I-
Yeah, go
I'd
ahead.
like- I want to interrupt you, and I want to keep your thoughts. So
Sure.
actually want to conclude your presentation because the 15 minutes is up. However, the board members, you can continue your talk regarding privacy when the board members have questions for you, if you don't mind. So if
Sure,
you can-
absolutely.
So keep your thoughts and presentation, and I would like to move it back to Ted for public comment, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you are attending by webinar and would like to give oral public comment regarding this project, please follow the instructions on screen and click the hand icon as shown on your GoToWebinar control panel. I do see a number of people in the attendees list. So while we wait for hands to raise, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence regarding this item?
Yes, we received one public comment letter from Brian and Nikki Costa, and that was distributed to the board prior to this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I do see several hands raised, so I'm just going to go down the list and I'll let you know who I'm going to call on. We have Brian Costa, Dan Shea, and Michelle Martin. And so I'll start with Brian Costa. Looks like Nikki Costa raised their hand as well. Brian, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
All right, well, good afternoon. Yeah, again, my name is Brian Costa. I'm a homeowner on Connie Way. I wanted to follow up on the letter that we submitted, the 28 neighbors submitted asking the board to reject this current design for 691 North Hope. Like before, we were disappointed to see that the latest design is largely unchanged. Although the FARs are now at 85%, the proposed FARs should be further reduced, as suggested in the single-family design guidelines for Santa Barbara, page 25C. These guidelines recommend that the FARs should be further reduced when homes are closer to property boundaries or more visible to the public and neighbors. And the proposed homes at 691 North Hope will be both close to their property lines and clearly visible by the neighbors and the public. It's also important to point out and put on the record that RM and the OWS ignored several of the board's recommendations listed in its May 24th motion. One of those recommendations was to, quote, address the privacy questions and concerns between the neighboring existing homes and proposed development. Despite Mr. Piker's suggestion, RM has not contacted any of the neighbors since May, and none of the information RM showed today was provided to the neighbors before. As a result, we submitted a public records request asking the city to provide us all information related to the rezoning, annexation, and development of 691 North Hope. As a result, the city, or as of today, the city has not yet completed this request. Consequently, the neighbors are asking the board to reject this proposal indefinitely again for two reasons. One, RM has not sufficiently addressed the board's recommendations on May. And two, to provide the city more time to complete the records request and to provide us, the neighbors, time to review and understand the requested documents. Mr. Chair and board members, as always, thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Dan Shea. And I just noticed that Mike Martoni raised their hand as well. So Dan Shea, I'm going to unmute you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon, board. Kind of new to this, so I was looking at your website and it states under the general functions for the board is to ensure that single-family residential unit projects are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in size and design. And number two, to protect public visual resources. And I'm pretty sure those second-story elements will obstruct public view. I'd like to see some story poles. I know that was talked about before at some point, but just walking down our street, we got a lot of families that walk down and enjoy the mountain view. And I think that's going to be obstructed if the two-story units are installed. The other thing is, I mean, pretty much our neighborhood, as a neighborhood, we're asking that this residential development be consistent with our neighborhood in type and size of homes. And I can understand totally why they want to maximize the lots. I mean, Santa Barbara property is expensive, and the bigger the house you build, the more money you get for it. And I can totally understand that. But honestly, this design doesn't even come close to fitting in with our existing neighborhood. It just doesn't. There's nothing around here with that modern architecture. I know that she showed some pictures of things, but they're not really in our immediate neighborhood. So those are my concerns: obstructing views and just keeping with the surrounding neighborhood size. And also quickly, I'd like to mention the street size is only 20 feet. So it doesn't allow sufficient parking for guests being in those properties, and it's going to flood into our neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and next up we have Michelle Martin, Nikki Costa, and Mike Martoni. And Michelle Martin, I'm going to unmute you. You'll have to hit the microphone button until your mic turns green.
Okay, there we go.
Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to participate again and just let you know I'm still here and still listening and still hopeful to have some changes that reflect our neighborhood. As the gentleman just said, you know, the style, while they're beautiful, the design does not look like our other homes that are in this neighborhood. I also am getting ready to start up my business again. I run an after-school business for Monte Vista School, and am daily walking back and forth several times a day to pick up children from school and walk them home. And Penn Place has been a problem with cars just pulling out in front of us. I walk ahead of them, but you know, the idea that a kid would run ahead and there's no, I don't know, I think you said in a report that you dealt with that, and I'd love to hear what's been done. I actually haven't read that, but it concerns me a lot to have more traffic going in and out of another development in relation to the children walking to school, whether it's with me or on their bikes, with their folks, or unattended. So, you know, there's research that says children do not really look to cross the street reliably until they're about 12. It's pretty common for kids to just run out and not think about the consequences. So I want you to think about that. Another thing that I heard you say was, anybody can create a second story if their view is affected. And I think that's a really kind of a non-solution. I mean, most people in Santa Barbara are struggling to pay rent, let alone put another story on their house.
Ms. Martin,
You can
Yeah.
say,
your 2-minute timer is up. The
Okay.
chair can give additional time if he desires to.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Nikki Costa. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hello, my name is Nikki Costa. I'm a homeowner on Connie Way. Since the neighbors were only notified about this design review 3 days ago, the majority of our group was unable to make it today. However, I was asked to share comments from Matt Scribner of 3830 Connie. He said, "I'm sorry I can't join. Please let the board know that I am traveling and my previous comments remain unchanged. RRM is not working with us and they have proven to be dishonest with the board and the neighborhood. RRM and the Yows are gaining personally, not just professionally, from this development and are doing this at the expense of the neighborhood." I was also asked to share comments on behalf of Chris Kirkbride of 3830 Penn. His concerns also remain the same as before, specifically that the size, bulk, and scale of the project is not consistent with the neighborhood. He also asked, how can the board approve construction without story poles to understand sightlines and without the requested section views to scale, showing the relationship between the proposed homes and the neighbors' homes? I'd also like to add my own comments. The eclectic homes shown today by RRM are not in the neighborhood as defined by the SFDB. Additionally, the drawing with sections was not in the plans prior to the meeting today. We understand that the Planning Commission and RRM have provided responses, although we have not seen the specific letter from RRM yet. We look forward to reviewing them in addition to the documents requested from the city. However, to give time for the city to provide the documentation and our neighbors the opportunity to review and understand how our concerns have been addressed, we're asking that you delay the approval today. Mr. Chair and board members, thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, the last public commenter is Mike Martoni. Mike Martoni, you'll need to hit the microphone button on your GoToWebinar control panel. And Mike Martoni, you are self-muted right now, so if you hit the microphone button on your control panel, you should be able to speak. Okay, not hearing anything from Mike Martoni, so I'm going to follow up with them. And we can reopen public comment if needed, but Mr. Chair, I suggest that we move on to questions from the board at this time.
all right, thank you. Moving back to the board for questions. Board Member Kloss, do you have any questions, please?
Things to do.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing somebody. I'm wondering if it's the public speaker that was attempting to call in Mr. Hamilton.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, this is Mike Martin. I was having trouble getting the button to kick on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, board. I appreciate your time. I did speak to you all at the last meeting. I live at adjacent to Lot 1 on the corner of Conway and Hope. I'm with the rest of the neighbors. Everybody has already pretty much covered what I had to say. I just, a couple things I wanted to reiterate. For them to come back with no real change in the stock or the compatible materials, et cetera, when the board almost unanimously asked them to last time, is a little upsetting to me. To give us the same picture and expect a different result seems a little odd to me. As far as the privacy issue, they made the second stories a little smaller, but in my case, I'm behind one of the few second stories, and it's on the east end of the property, which is just right where my house is and all of my view lines. So I don't know what else to say about that. And then another quick comment. The drainage issue I know has been addressed a lot at the, and I brought this up a year and a half ago when they first started the project. My house, even though I'm at the top of the hill, when it rains really hard, I get flooded in my back. And I brought that up over the years many times. And the drainage, when I explained, they're going to have part of the drainage from lot 1 and part of 2 flow back up toward Hope Avenue. And with the grading, I know for a fact that won't work. I've been here almost 40 years and never resolved the issue. So I appreciate your time and thanks for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chair, we do have an additional public commenter who just raised their hand. So Matthew McDermott, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, and your mic is live. Please go ahead. And Matthew McDermott, your mic is live. You've got 2 minutes to speak if you would like to. Okay, not hearing anything from Matthew McDermott, so I'm going to follow up with him offline, and we may need to reopen public comment in order to get everybody in. This does happen sometimes. So he's trying to speak in chat, so we'll work with him. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to questions, and I'll work with the public commenter.
All right, thank you. Board Member Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, I do. So some of these questions are in the interest of just clarifying, daylighting things for those who have called in from the public or who have written letters. So I just want to make sure. So a couple of these questions are for staff. I don't know who's on the line. Maybe Kathleen Kennedy is on the line. But the first question that I want to understand is what I heard earlier today was that we have no purview over the traffic safety concerns or the drainage issues at this time because those have been addressed and cleared by city staff. Is that a correct summary of what we heard previously, Ms. Kennedy?
Yes, Board Member Kalas, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. You were also speaking about the public information request for documents, but I didn't hear any time frame associated with that. And I'd like to know if there could be a commitment made to the public or a general sense of timeline related to providing that public information request to those who requested it. Do we have any sense of how long that's going to take? Will it be a week? Will it be a month? Will it be 2 months? I think it's important that they get the information in a time frame that is congruent and parallels this process.
Yes, so we have a system for this. I know Building Safety Archives Division handles that. So I did provide all the information from me last week. So I think it's very soon that they'll be getting the information, but I don't know exactly what date it would be. I would say more within the week, not within the month, but maybe in a few days. But I don't know for sure the timeline. I don't, that's not my responsibility to keep track of the time on that. So I'm not totally sure.
Okay, thank you. A while back, we received public comment, and I think one of the items that was brought up was something that had to do with dust control, perhaps, or concerns about construction. And so I just wanted to get clarification on how much authority our board has over conditioning a project relative to days of the week, hours, holidays, dust control, dust management practices. Could you provide some direction in that regard or clarification, please?
Sure. So the Planning Commission created a resolution with the list of conditions of approval. And those are actually attached to the memo that you received.
Okay.
They list lots of conditions regarding drainage and such. Also, there's always construction implementation requirements, and those are for noticing for the neighbors when construction will begin, having a pre-construction conference, construction hours are listed there, the staging areas, and then a whole section on air quality and dust control is included as well.
Okay, could we just scroll to those? I'm sorry, I think that document must have come over relatively late. I didn't have an opportunity to review it before this meeting.
So I have to say for the record, Ms. Kennedy, I never saw this document, so I apologize. I'm going through my emails right now, trying to see if I ever received it, and I don't see it. So I'm like a little puzzled here, and I'm not sure, what was the date you sent this document?
I noticed it was dated today. I don't believe I got it either.
I'd have to defer to Ted. I'm not sure when it was sent out. Barbara Burkhart prepared it, and I'm not quite sure the process of how it got to you.
So I have not, this is the first time I've seen this. Has anyone else on the board seen this?
No.
It should have been emailed to you.
Yes, Mr. Chair and board members, the typical process for issuing this type of memo would be to post it to the website the same day that the agenda is posted, and also send it in an email to the board or commission.
Okay. Was that done? I don't.
Mr. Chair, we will look into that and we'll have to follow up on that.
That would be great if there could be follow-up and we could find out whether that was in fact sent out or we were given a link to that, because given the holidays, the long weekend, I don't recall seeing it either. It was a little bit of a surprise when it was brought up in front of us today. So I'm sorry, getting back to my question, can we go back to, I think you were noting that was attachment 3, Ms. Kennedy? I'm just trying to daylight what those conditions of approval are from the Planning Commission so that the public is aware of those.
So if you look at page 5 of that attachment,
Mr. Chair and to the board, the staff memo that I have, this is the only thing I have for attachment 3. It's just this page that says the reso number on it, and then the next page goes to attachment 4. So if there's a different version that someone from staff can send me, I'm happy to pull it up. Thanks.
Perhaps we can put that on ice and staff can look into that while we're moving on. If that's okay, we could circle back to this, but I think it'd be helpful for the public to know what the hours of construction are and requirements.
and just on that point, just to clarify, there will be a required notice, like I mentioned, to the neighbors. So they will be sent a letter. They will be given the list of conditions of approval that would affect them, and that would include the construction hours and days as well.
And at what point will that be sent to them, Ms. Kennedy?
There is a requirement at least 20 days prior to construction.
Okay, or alternatively, they should be able to review the Planning Commission minutes or resolution online. Would that be another opportunity for them?
They could, yes. Sometimes it's difficult to find online, but they definitely could do that, yes.
Okay. I think I have 2 other questions that are staff related, and then I'll get to my applicant questions. I'm sorry. There on sheet A0.3 of the applicant's submittal, and they went through this, they are using this radius of 1,200 feet that they're saying is a 5-minute walk. And there seems to be an attempt to use that as a means of defining neighborhood. Can you, as staff, clarify whose purview it is to define neighborhood? Is that staff's purview? Is that the applicant's purview? Or is that the role of this board to define neighborhood? I mean, there's definitions in our guidelines. And so I want to understand that, because this does not necessarily seem to be consistent with our guidelines. And so I'd like to understand where this document derived from.
Well, I may have to defer to Ted on how this board has defined neighborhood in the past. Has much more experience with this board than I do in that regard. But I think it is often based on the project, determining, what it feels like, what the neighborhood feels like. And I know the Planning Commission may look at it differently than SFDB. City Council, again, may also look at it differently.
Okay, so Mr. Hamilton, can you provide some clarity on that point? Because I'm just in a situation where I'm having to refer to our guidelines.
Yes, Board Member Collas and Mr. Chair. The board can define the neighborhood, and this is typically done when making a motion for project design approval as part of the neighborhood compatibility findings. You would define the neighborhood as surrounding streets within a certain radius.
Okay, because I'm looking at our guidelines and there's two definitions of neighborhood. One is a general plan neighborhood, which relates to land use. The other one is immediate neighborhood, and which I think is probably more how this has been defined to date in motions by the board, where we're defining this as Connie, Pem, and Hope Avenue. So I'm a little bit concerned about this document in the applicant's submittal package, because it tends to be incongruent with that definition.
I see Irma, you stepped forward, but I could say on my experience of being on this board for the last 8 years, it's been the purview of the review board to define the neighborhood. So that's what we've done in previous projects. So I don't know, Irma, if you'd like to add to that.
I was going to basically say the same thing, Mr. Chair. The definitions in the guidelines, especially the ones that relate to the general plan, are obviously more general, bigger, larger neighborhoods. This board has typically defined the neighborhood based on the project site.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And then the last question I have is, there's been discussions on other projects, but I think it may be pertinent here, I don't know, about and I'm going to use the wrong nomenclature, so please excuse me and educate me on the right terminology, but there's some conversations that have occurred about projects timing out from a planning perspective, like they're taking too much time to get through the process. And can someone explain to me what that duration is, what triggers that, and perhaps exactly what that term is, so that I'm more familiar with that?
Is that to staff? I'm not familiar.
Yes, that's directed to staff.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, so I can't help you with that one.
Mr. Chair, I'm not certain that we have that terminology. Maybe something more specific. I know that comments sometimes are applicable for a certain amount of time. Once an approval is provided, or I should say granted, there's a timeline that has to be followed in terms of it being valid. But a timeout or what, I don't remember what you called it, Vice Chair Kalas. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Okay, those were the only questions that I had for staff. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Trying to think if I have specific questions for the applicant. I did appreciate the photos that they included, although they weren't from the immediate neighborhood. I'd like to know if they have any sheets that address lighting, overall lighting for the project. I think that was a request in one of the past meeting minutes, and I don't recall seeing anything that being addressed in the applicant's presentation. This is a question for applicant, whether there is any lighting plans provided, where there are any provided.
I believe that the landscape plan provides some lighting. So you're welcome to go and look at that sheet. But we don't know, I guess, I'm sorry. Scott, do you want to address that?
Yeah,
I thought that was, but it's not.
no problem. We have a condition where the building itself is relatively close to the sidewalk and the major points of entry. So we're kind of going to be relying on a lot of light spill from the building and fixtures on the building, but we do expect just a standard amount of landscape lighting. There aren't any specific lighting features that the owner has recommended so far that would be like noteworthy. Just your traditional path lights and maybe some plant accents.
So there is no lighting plan at this time, is that correct?
Correct. We do not have a landscape lighting plan.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps if we could look at the landscaping plan since we have it up, whomever from the applicant could just talk us a little bit more. I mean, I appreciated the sections that were provided in an attempt to address the privacy concerns between the various lots. But I think it would be very helpful to understand a little bit better. Like, for example, I'm looking at the property line between lot 1 and lot 2, and I'm not seeing significant screening there. Perhaps I'm just not reading the legend right, but if you know, like between lot 2 and lot 3, it looks like there is an attempt to create some increased screening. I guess I'd like to understand that better.
Are you talking about vertically between the lots or between the adjacent properties? Okay. Yeah. So in that particular instance, there's not a lot of outdoor use that is adjacent to each other. So between lot 2 and lot 3, there's actually adjacent outdoor spaces that we were trying to screen and create kind of a vertical garden wall. But between lot 1 and lot 2, it's a bit of a back of house situation with the ADU. And then the bedrooms will have smaller windows and some associated vegetation outside, but not that need for the hedging really.
The windows along lot 1, along those two adjacent properties are all high. They're not visible. And so neither lot 2 will be able to look into that, and neither lot 1 would be able to look out onto the other property either. And the other building is a garage. And again, it's a high window.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wah, when you say they're high, are they like a clear story type of window, or is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. Well, they're over, I believe the sill is over 6 feet.
Okay.
I would have to double check, but yes, they are high.
Those are the only questions I have at this time. I do have comments, but those are the only specific questions I have at this time, Chair Miller.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please? and you unmute yourself.
Sorry. Right now, my questions are directed toward the two streets that are adjacent to each other. I'm looking at the site plan right now, and that is a new public, I can read it, a new public street, and has not been named yet. Is Pim Place, I guess it's called Pim Place, is that just to the north of that? Is that a public street also? Or, if I remember right, it was owned by the lots that go down that street. Is it a public street or is it a private street? Could the city staff answer that, or the applicant?
Well, it's a private driveway.
It's a private driveway. Okay. Private driveway. I also noticed that it stops at the end of APN 011 right there. And then it goes over 2 lots and starts again and goes continuous all the way to Lacombe. I don't know if in the future that will ever be connected, but the question I have is, are the lots to the north of the project here, do they have the right, if it's a private, do they have the right, because the project is developing a public road? Will that could in the future become a public road for those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots to the north of your project? I'm asking that of the applicant.
That is the plan that the city presented to us. We, explored a number of different options for this road. We proposed a private driveway on our own property. And the city has policies for this type of subdivision to create a public road that the city is ultimately responsible.
So the road.
We did reach out to the neighbors to the north to see if they were interested in also, annexing into the city and turning their private driveway, joining it with ours to create a wider public road. But at this time, that was not something that they wanted to do, but it's still a possibility in the future.
Okay, let me ask another question. Are those 1, 2, 3, 7 lots? And if I remember right, they are objecting to your houses being crowded onto the 6 lots that you have. Is that correct?
I don't know. I assume that some of those neighbors may be objecting to our subdivision. Yes.
Okay, I'm leading to something you probably all realize, that we may end up with one street here, and to be announced sooner or later what the name of the street is. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it right there. I don't like the idea of what is happening here, and I never did. Last time you brought this before me, I brought up the subject of why your northern neighbors did not. They're putting up this, and I'm sorry I'm making a comment. Yeah. Forgive me, Brian, but I would like to make a comment here. I can't understand. Are these northern lots? And I'll put it into a question.
There you go.
Still objecting to the fact that they were not allowing their street to be part of your street, and put the street down the middle of the property line and half, and give your lots bigger lots, which would fit the lot, and then we want those lots to be 85% of the ratio that we tried to stay under all the time, and the lots would be closer to. Yeah, I'm going to leave it right there. I think I've made my point. I have a couple comments later. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, I was questioning is how many story poles are going in and when might they be going in?
I don't think that's been determined yet, Board Member Ziegler. That's kind of down the pathway. I don't think we have a determination yet till the designs are finally determined.
Okay, okay, thank you.
That's your only question?
That's my only question at this point.
All right, thank you. I think I'm the next one for questions. So, couple things. Reviewing the letters from the neighbors, one of the critical components to any project in this town is neighborhood, good neighbor policy. So there's been several accusations made, and so I want to kind of ask the representatives of this project your comments on this. One of them was the board was requested by RRM consider materials more consistent with the neighborhood and consider looking at 3814 Connie Way and other nearby projects as archetypes. RRM did not incorporate any of these design suggestions into the revised proposal. The board also directed RRM to address the privacy questions and concerns of the neighbors. Since May, RRM has not contacted any of the neighbors who have signed this letter to discuss or address the privacy concerns. RRM has not provided additional documentation to the neighbors illustrating the proposed home sightlines into the adjacent properties. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, that's a puzzle to me. We reached out to the neighbors on several occasions, and I have said before, and I said it at the last meeting, that we're more than happy to meet with the neighbors. And now we can do it in person, or we can do it virtually to discuss any aspect of this project. And I think it would have been very helpful to this board if the neighbors had taken us up on that. And if you saw the letter that we submitted on the 28th, as required prior to this meeting, we once again invited the neighbors to reach out to us and set up a meeting. I mean, that's how, how questions get answered, how we have an opportunity to try to address concerns or even provide additional exhibits to help. But we didn't get that. And I think the reason is perhaps the neighbors wanted to kind of consolidate their concern or opposition to the project without compromising it by meeting with us. That's the only thing that I can come to. But like I said, we have been more than willing. And even after you give us design approval today, we'd be more than happy to meet with the neighbors to continue that dialogue. If there are specific concerns, we would try to incorporate those in the final documentation and bring them back to the board for final review. So again, I think that, we have a great reputation, RRM does, for working with neighbors and folks who have concerns and stakeholders. That's one of the first things, we try to do in projects, across the board. So okay. I'm sad that we didn't have that opportunity here.
Okay. So here's the next one, is that since the neighbors have not received answers from RRM, YOUS, or the city, we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the city asking they provide all documents related to the rezoning, annexation, and development of 691 North Hope. The city has not yet fulfilled this request. Consequently, the neighbors are asking the SFDB to reject this proposal again today for two reasons. RRM did not address any of the board's recommendations, and two, provide the city time to complete an FOAIA request and provide all 28 of our neighbors time to review and understand the implications of this development. So I guess what they're saying is the documents that Ms. Kennedy alluding to have not been provided yet. So I guess that's what that's kind of addressing. I don't want to rehash that anymore because I think Mr. Peikert, you answered that adequately. Let's see, do I have any other questions? Okay, I think those are my only questions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
You're welcome. I have answers to several questions and also a couple of questions for you, if I may.
Sure. Yes, please.
Okay, so staff checked on the status of the memo and whether it was emailed to the board. We could not locate an email that was sent to the board when the agenda was posted, so normally we would do that. It was posted on the website, but that would have been the only sort of notification you would have gotten about it, is just to see it on the website. And if you would like to, you may take a brief recess to read the memo. I think the actual memo is only several pages, and the attachments are quite lengthy, so you can just read the shorter portion of the memo if you like. That is an option.
Well, I guess my question regarding the memo, that was more of like, that's more of the logistical compliance with the setup of the 6 lots. It's not necessarily dealing with the designs of the in particular buildings. Is that correct?
The memo does talk in detail about the approval process. So the design details are shown in the presentation here. And so that's an option if you want to review it. Let's see. The other thing, we checked with records and archives staff, and the deadline to respond to the public records request is July 8th. So the requester should be receiving those documents by that date. And the last question I had for you is if you would like to reopen public comment. We had that one commenter who was not able to speak, or their audio wasn't working. So Mr. Chair, if you'd like to do that, we can.
Yes, please. I'd like to hear from that speaker. Okay,
and just as a note to all other commenters, this is to provide an opportunity for the public commenter who's having audio issues to speak using the second round of public comment. Okay, so Matthew McDermott, I'm going to... All right, your mic appears to be live. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Matthew, you may need to hit the audio input on your GoToWebinar control panel, change it to whatever microphone input you're using.
Ugh.
Looks like he's working on it. I apologize for the delay. We're all trying to work here in this remote environment. Hopefully we won't have to do it for too much longer.
I don't like this remote environment.
Neither do I.
Challenges, yes. Okay, it looks like this commenter is going to call in. Okay, Matthew McDermott, it looks like you're connected by phone. I'm going to send you your audio pin. You'll need to enter that. All right, Mr. Chair, not hearing, oh wait, here we go. Okay, Matthew McDermott, go ahead and try again.
Yes, this is he.
Great.
Yeah, thanks for your patience. I'm not sure why the computer wasn't working. I spoke last time too, but I grew up at 3836 Penn Place, across from 691. And my mother, Joan Sullivan, still lives there. And I wanted to reiterate, last time we spoke of the drainage challenge. There is a concrete drain that is basically between our house and 3838 Penn Place, and it has been filling with sediment due to a lot of the rains bringing the sediment through, and there's no flow through to 691 Hope. There is dirt blocking the exit through to 691 Hope, and that means because there's that drainage is blocked, we have all the sediment that builds up in the drain. The last time I said this, someone from RRM basically blamed us for not clearing it out enough. That is false. We clear it out about once a year. We spend, $400 or $500 doing it. The owners of 691 Hope have not been allowing for reasonable passage of the water through their property, and we want to make sure that's addressed. We've had several very, very large floodings of Penn Place, which you can see in a lot of the photos we've submitted as our neighborhood group. I also want to say that RRM has mentioned that they have been very, very open to speaking with neighbors and reached out to neighbors. We, as a neighborhood group, have asked to meet with them. And as far as I understand, they have not been willing to meet with us as a group. They very early on met with individual neighbors, but as far as I understand, have been unresponsive to our request to meet with us as a group. I think we would welcome that. But again, we've submitted a lot of emails to them asking for information, asking for plans. And it feels to me, and I think other neighbors in this group, that they have not been responsive.
All right.
And that's been quite disappointing.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. I need to move on quickly here. So
Okay.
Thank you. I think we're on to comments. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
All right. Board Member Kloss, do you have comments, please? You're muted.
A lot of notes here. So if anybody keeps wondering why I keep looking down, it's because I'm taking notes as we are all going through this process. And I apologize, but it's the only way for me to keep everything sort of straight. So let's see. I appreciate that the applicant has attempted to bring the FARs within the 85% guideline, and that they addressed the height issues that I think were brought up several meetings back. I also appreciate the fact that they provided some photographs of, I'll call it the broader neighborhood. Although I'd like to say that many of the homes that they have elected to take photographs of and present here appear to be homes that have recently gone through a remodel, and they're not necessarily representative of the underlying fabric of the immediate neighborhood. They're more representative of sort of up and coming or recent renovations. I do not feel that sheet A0.3 should remain in this submittal set. I do not think it accurately represents the neighborhood that the board has previously identified as being the neighborhood that should be the poster child, so to speak, for this project, or that we should be looking at for compatibility and contextuality. I am still concerned about the general disparity in these homes with the immediate surrounding neighborhood. I looked back on our guidelines. On sheet 15C of our guidelines, there are two ways of defining neighborhood, as I had mentioned previously. One was general plan neighborhood, and the other one is immediate neighborhood. And I think that when the board clearly identified Connie Way, Penn Place, and Hope Avenue at the outset of this project as being the neighborhood that should be looked at for context, that put us in the category of immediate neighborhood rather than general plan. And so I think that sheet A 0.3 really attempts to broaden that, but the board has clearly defined the neighborhood that we should be looking at here. And I don't find the project in front of us to be compatible with that immediate neighborhood. I think that the immediate neighborhood is bound by Hope Avenue, but I don't think that Hope Avenue is necessarily the neighborhood itself. I think it's a main artery. Like I said in the last board meeting, I grew up 1 block over on Calle Cita. And I can tell you that Penn Place, Connie Way, those all connect to, I think it's Rolling Brook, if I remember right, and in turn connect to Calle Cita. That's really the pedestrian-oriented neighborhood that should be looked at here. While Hope Avenue provides boundary, that's not necessarily part of the neighborhood. That's a artery that one uses when they're walking to State Street, but they won't generally use that to walk the neighborhood because it's so well traveled. It's traveled at high rates of speed, so it's not a desirable place to walk as a pedestrian. I also looked at our guidelines relative to architectural style, and I heard what the applicant said, that there is no definitive style in this neighborhood. When that is the case, according to sheet 28C, this is under section 11 of architectural style in our guidelines. There's a section that says neighborhoods without distinctive architecture. And I'm going to read this, I'm going to cite this. It says, in neighborhoods that do not possess examples of distinctive architecture, for example, some blocks of the West Mesa, structures in addition should be designed to lead the neighborhood towards designs that are harmonious with Santa Barbara's distinctive built environment. What that says to me is if there is no distinctive architecture in the neighborhood, then we need to fall back on our broader townscape architecture, which is clearly Spanish Mediterranean. So I do not find these compatible with that or commensurate with our guidelines. I don't feel there's not a lighting plan that's been provided. And while there was an attempt to address neighborhood privacy issues, I feel as though it was very modest in its attempts. And I'd like to see a more genuine, attempt to address those privacy issues for the neighbors. Those are my comments at this time.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I disagree with Board Member Kalas. I'm sorry, but I also am really familiar with the neighborhood because I own property ways over and have owned it for over 40 years. And these houses are fit into the neighborhood because they're just a little bit more modern than a lot of the houses in the neighborhood. And there really isn't a distinct architecture in the area as stated. But I won't go as far as saying that because there's not a distinct architectural style in the neighborhood that we should resort back to Spanish Mediterranean styles, because that is not the style of the neighborhood, not at all. And that has been changed over the years because of tracks that have developed similar to this track pertaining to, and I'll call it out, White Rose Way or White Rose, with 5 or 6 houses that were indeed Spanish, and they had no problem getting through because people and our boards and other people thought the way and think the way they do at this time. all the houses on this project look like a lot of houses in the neighborhood, and they're just a little bit more modern. And that's what's going to happen to all the houses that are similar to these houses. Somebody's going to put $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000 in them, add a window here and a fascia there, and they're going to make them a little bit more modern than what they are. The houses that are now in this area are very nondescript, modern, flat roofed with a little slope on them. And that's what this project is proposing. I won't go any further on those comments of that. I think I've made my point. This is neighborhood. This is compatible with the neighborhood. I have always felt that way, and that's why I disagreed with the vote last time this project came before us. And then I have a couple other comments about story poles. I have walked on Calisita and Connie Way. You look up, you can barely see the second stories of these houses beyond the houses on the street that you're walking on. It's a sour subject as far as I'm concerned, that these houses block any view, and even bringing up the subject of story poles is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. Streetlights, I have not, yes, I would like to see a site plan with lights illuminating different lots. But if it's going to be a street, a public street, a city public street, there will be lights on that street, and that street is going to light up every house on that street, those lights. So that's another subject that we're bringing up that is just not necessary.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, my comment is, I think we've spent way too much time on this project. We've been in it 3 or 4 times. We've spent way too much time on it. But I agree with Mr. Motisha. I think it's an okay project. I think it will fit in okay. I think the story pole idea is okay. If it turns out people think their views are going to be blocked, that's why I asked about it. But I think we should approve it, and let's get on. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to speak up. I'm going to address what Mr. Motisha said, and I want to underline this very carefully. When Leslie was making her comments, Mr. Motisha, she was basing it on a book, on the guidelines, not on an opinion, not on a, please stop, let me speak. She was basing it on the heritage and the legacy of this town. So, and I brought this up frequently, and Mr. Picard, brought this up. This is not a typical city. Santa Barbara is not a typical city. I grew up in Santa Maria. I have friends in Oxnard. These are cities that are typical cities. Beautiful cities. I'm not bashing them. I'm not criticizing them. But the architectural review of those cities doesn't exist. As a consequence, you have yourself a typical American city. One of the attributes of these typical American cities is that the population usually has no say or control of how a city is developed. One of the biggest mistakes Santa Maria did back in the 80s is when they were trying to develop their West Side Mall, and they decided to have the citizens of the city come in and decide the architectural styles of that city. There was the Santa Maria Theater, there was that whole block. The city people voted against having any change at all. They wanted to restore that area, make it, historical. It was like the old town fabric of the original founding of the city. But the city fathers, the power that be, the investments, the bankers, the property owners, and the farmers who control that, said, no, that was a mistake. We're going to do it our way because we put the money in. And so that whole block was torn down, and it was built in this catastrophic mess that is downtown Santa Maria. I bring that up because one of the beauties of this town, and the very fact that we had this petition where the neighbors were able to speak and said that this development is not compatible. Now, to Mr. Pikert and the developers' credit, their drawings are exceptional. They're beautiful drawings, but they don't fit the compatibility of the neighborhood. And Ms. Colas brings up an issue that I find puzzling. I absolutely find puzzling is how these architects struggle with the Spanish colonial look. Like they fight it, they resist it, they undermine it, but that's the game plan of Santa Barbara. That's the rules. It's like Monopoly, you know? In this game, Spanish colonial architecture is the preferred style because that's the specialty that was created, what, 7,500 years ago. Sorry, I didn't mean to pound on the table. But these are very good points, and it's a good discussion. But in this context, to say that, you know, this is a typical city and architecture is going to evolve a certain way, you're right. But in Santa Barbara, this is not typical. So in that context, I would have to say, I can't support this project, not because the designs are bad. I want to underline, Mr. Pikert, these are beautiful designs. But what I'd love to see is you invite all the neighbors in your surrounding neighborhood and you have a big party, you serve wine, pizza, or whatever, and you guys start communicating with each other and start working out something where you're all happy with what you've got developed here. You know, this us against them is constantly is not gonna go anywhere. And we've had projects in the past where neighbors have said they'll never speak to each other, and all of a sudden they do, and it's like, you know, rainbows and butterflies, and suddenly these plans get through quickly. So like I said, I can't support the project as it stands because it's not following the good neighbor guidelines, and I can't feel comfortable of saying that this particular style fits in with this neighborhood. So that's kind of where I'm at. So it looks like, based on the lack of people on this board, we have a 50-50 split here. So anyway, that's my comment right now. So with that being said, the client has requested design approval. So would someone like to entertain a motion for that?
Before you do,
Mr.
Chair
Pikert,
Miller.
let me, hold on, sorry. After the motion is made, Mr. Pikert, I'll let you speak. How about that?
I just want to have an opportunity to rebut some of the statements that have been made. I think it's important and necessary to clear the record and for the record. So
Well,
please proceed, you're the chair.
Pikert, please, I got what you're saying. I don't think you're going to change my mind. I don't think you're going to change Ms. Colas's mind or Mr. Motisha or Mr. Ziegler's. It's clearly that both of those, and that's the beauty of this board. I'm not saying, you know, if we had 7 members, it'd be even more balanced, then you'd probably get a better perspective. But unfortunately, because there's only 4 of us, we've got a little difference of opinion of how this project proceeds. So I think at this point in time, Mr. Pikert, if you don't mind, I'm going to have someone entertain a motion, and then after the motion is seconded, then you can speak your piece.
Like to make a motion?
Okay.
The motion is that the project be continued, and I'm going to say indefinitely, to the full board because of a couple of things. I do think the project I think we need story polls, because I think that will help the neighbors to better understand what the true impact on the neighborhood will be. I also think that in the interest of fairness and equity, that the neighbors need to be able to receive the information from the city that they've requested. So I'd like to continue the project indefinitely to the full board with the comment that sheet A0-3 be removed from the applicant's package because it does not reflect the direction that the board has given on multiple occasions where we have identified Connie Way, Penn Place, and Hope Avenue as the primary neighborhood for the project. That the applicant return with a lighting plan for the project at large, which should include light fixtures that will be on both in the site as well as on the buildings. I don't know, I'll let staff speak to whether there will be street lights required. If so, that's a transportation item, so I don't think that's in our purview. I continue to feel, I guess I would say that the board still feels that the project is incompatible in terms of material use. That additional efforts be made to address the privacy issue between the existing neighbors and the proposed parcels. And I'm going to hold to my previous comment that sandstone is not a compatible, that sandstone on the walls of the residences is not a compatible use with the neighborhood and the manner in which sandstone would be used in the neighborhood. That's my motion, Chair Miller. I don't know if you have anything to add to that or if we will even receive a second, but that's my motion at this time.
All right, I have nothing to add to that. So do we have a second? Ted, are you there?
Mr. Chair, I'm here.
So can I second the motion?
Yes, the chair can second any motion.
Okay, I second the motion, so it's open for discussion. So Mr. Picard, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair Miller. First, I want to just say, obviously, we are not going to be able to get to a decision today. So what I propose is a continuance to the next meeting when you will have a full board, hopefully, or at least a board, one member short, the new member, but the ability to actually reach a decision vote. So I want to add to that the idea, the guidelines that you held up and that we're using as a guide. Guidelines are a guide. They are not objective. They are a means by which you can make subjective opinions, and that's what it is. Now, as you know, cities everywhere, all throughout California, are moving in the direction of objective design standards. So there's a difference, and once those are in place, it'll be a lot easier to understand and interpret what is required of a project. Right now, we're in this sort of Netherland, I guess we'd say, that creates conditions where it's very difficult to come to a clear understanding as to what the decision-making role of the board is. So that's important. Now, Ms. Glasses suggested that we need to remove the exhibit showing the greater neighborhood. I completely disagree. It's entirely within our right to provide exhibits that illustrate our reasoning for this project. And we intend to continue to keep that exhibit in place. But we also have an exhibit that shows the immediate neighborhood as described by you and as defined as one of the ways of defining a neighborhood in the guidelines. So both are there for consideration. There's nothing wrong with the board considering the greater neighborhood. And I have to point out, you actually asked us to go to places like Willowgren and other streets that are outside even of our defined neighborhood. So therefore, I beg to differ with that suggestion. Story poles, I want to make a point about story poles. What is the point of story poles? We're allowed to have two-story elements in our building. Only 24% of our overall square footage is a second story. What will be accomplished? We'll put up some poles and then someone will say, oh, I can see the building. Okay, so we're below 25 feet in height, 5 feet below the allowable height of 30 feet. We've cooperated on that score and provided a height that's, I think, pretty much acceptable in any neighborhood of the city. So what would be the point of having story poles going to it sounds sort of punitive or something, because nothing will be accomplished by putting up story poles. And furthermore, we can actually provide virtual views from any point around the project that are accurately reflect the actual setting, from any perspective, from someone's window or anywhere, so you can see without having to go to the trouble of putting up story poles and the time and money invested in that for no particular purpose. Now, one other thing I want to say is compatibility does not mean the same as these houses that are around us, particularly when there's an eclectic mix of design styles that you could never really say, which house should we be the same as? No, it means generally acceptable within the realm and the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And finally, I think I want to just touch on this idea of the Spanish colonial style that Chair Miller referenced. Yeah, I mean, sure, we could do that. As a matter of fact, RRM and I myself personally have designed many projects in the city in that style and in a modern style in the appropriate neighborhoods, and received design approval and multiple design awards for all of these projects. So we are, kind of at the high end of talent in terms of design. And in this particular case, there's an opportunity to do something that is also part of Santa Barbara. And in that eclectic mix, I think we have an opportunity to do something that's maybe a little bit different, a little more contemporary, a little more up to date with what people are actually looking for. Why would we copy a house that was built 50 years ago, et cetera? So that's where we're at. But, I'm not putting out the idea that we would not be willing to go Spanish colonials. That's what it took to get this project approved. And I've been there before with other projects where ultimately that seemed to be what everyone wanted. And, I feel sad for that because it really stifles true innovation and creativity. But sure, we can do it. We do it all day long. And that's something we might consider after this meeting, if that was the thing that brought 2 more votes in favor of this project. And as far as neighborhood meetings are concerned, again, I've said it already, we reach out to the neighbors. We're happy to meet with them anytime. And what I propose today is that we have a continuance, since there's not any possibility of making a decision today, that we continue the meeting for 2 weeks, next meeting, and we'll be back with possible design changes or suggestions if we decide to go in this Spanish colonial direction. But we'll take the comments that we've heard to heart, and we will offer once again to meet with the neighbors in that 2-week period, anytime in our office, in-person meetings. Anyone who wants to participate is welcome to come. And let's discuss it. Let's have the dialogue that we wanted all along, but we're, prevented from getting. So I will throw out a couple of dates with the neighbors, and then when we come back in 2 weeks, we'll see where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. I really appreciated your comments. And I'm also thinking that if you came back with Spanish colonial, that would be kind of ridiculous. So,
thank you.
Yeah. But the thing that I'm kind of hooked up on right now is the neighbors. So I think if we can get some good communication between you and the neighbors so that they feel a little more comfortable and that you could work with them, and it may require you to alter the plans a little bit, but if you can get some good neighbor support, because that's one of the primary objectives is the good neighbor policy, that would really make a huge difference. So I think the primary goal on this particular meeting is communication and making sure that because apparently there is some kind of disconnect between what you're saying and what the neighbors are saying. And I really would like to get that resolved. So with that being said, and I seconded the motion, let's have a roll call. And
can we hear the motion? Can we hear the motion read back to us?
I like what Mr. Pikert said too. So anyway.
Well, that might be a separate motion if
Yeah.
this one fails.
Or we may want to amend it, Chair Miller. I'd just like to hear the motion reread.
Ed, could you?
Vice Chair and Chair, I think I can read the motion for you if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay, so it's continue indefinitely to full board with comments. Story polls for neighbors to better understand the impact on the neighborhood. Neighbors need to receive information from the city as requested. Sheet AO3 be removed because it does not accurately represent the primary neighborhood of the project. Lighting plan for a project at large, including light fixtures. The board still feels that the project is incompatible in material use. It still needs to address some privacy issues, and the sandstone on the walls of residents is not compatible with the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Would the maker of the motion like to amend that motion?
Yes, I'd be happy to amend that motion for a continuance to the full board for 2 weeks.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yes.
And Vice Chair Collas, board members, just want to make it known to the applicant that the resubmittal deadline for a 2-week continuance would be 1 week from today. So just make sure that's okay with the applicant team. If not, I suggest continuing 4 weeks to allow more time to revise plans and resubmit.
Mr. Pikert, do you think that would give you time to meet with the neighbors and make whatever revisions are required?
Yeah, if you'll give me one moment to just check with Mr. Yao, who's our client.
Absolutely.
Then he will, then I will give you the answer, and I think that's a reasonable request. Okay, that's great. So let's do a 4-week continuance. That'll give us time to resubmit any changes. And we hope, again, that the neighbors have heard us, that we want to meet with them. We'll meet with them in person in our office. We can have the full set of plans printed out, sit around a conference table and explain, answer questions, and possibly respond with additional changes.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
So I'm happy
Thank
to
you.
amend it to a 4-week continuance to full board instead.
Yes.
Okay, I second that. So can we have a roll call, please? This motion,
Thank you. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Collas,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. If I do and I'm right if I don't.
it'll work out. It'll work out.
I'm hoping,
so is that a yes?
no, not a yes yet. I need to say something, and I appreciate it if I could say something.
Well,
Comments. 2 seconds, just 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I'll say it in one paragraph. We've had comments here, nay or yay. And I have my own opinion, and I want to do what's best for the project. And Mr. Piker stated what you will accept. I will say yes on this motion if you can persuade, hopefully, with a little, as far as I'm concerned, you only need a little bit of effort. And those may be just words, but I will say yes on the proposal at this moment, but I might say no next time. I say yes.
all right. Take some pills. No, I'm kidding. All right, got it.
Thank you. And Board Member Ziegler,
I'd like to say yes, but with a comment that the meeting lasts a half hour next time.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Piker, for your input. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chair Miller, may I request a very brief recess for biological reasons?
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to give a 5-minute recess, please. We'll
Thank
return
you.
Thank you.
5:15.
Thank you.
Single Family Design Board, and we're on to item 2, 116 Santa Cruz Boulevard. This is a new item for project design approval. It's a proposal to construct a 175 square foot first floor addition and a new 633 square foot second story to an existing single unit residence. The project includes a 255 square foot second floor wraparound balcony at the south and west elevations and a 125 square foot second floor balcony at the east elevation with a metal spiral stair that provides access to a 97 square foot roof deck. Demolition of the existing roof and existing wood decks would occur as part of the project. The new roof is proposed to be finished with standing seam metal roofing material. The project also includes an interior remodel, new windows and doors throughout, and replacement of the existing wood siding with a smooth plaster finish. The proposed 2,962 square foot development on a 9,415 square foot lot is 84% of the required maximum floor to lot area ratio. Hello, Ray and Sherry Oaks, welcome.
Hi.
Hello. You'd like to present your project? Oh, and it says slide 2 of 2, the project design approval is requested.
We thought that our architect was going to start. Jonathan, are you on?
Uh-oh, Jonathan Villegas.
I'm here.
Not Jonathan Ziegler, Jonathan Villegas. Is he the architect?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe Jonathan Villegas is here and currently getting into the meeting. Sorry for the delay there.
There we go. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, how you doing?
All right,
Yes.
you have the floor.
Okay, great. Yes, this is a proposed project at 116 Santa Cruz Boulevard on the Mesa. It's to improve a one-story California cottage that was built in 1948. It had some additions here and there throughout the years. The intent of this project is to utilize the views of the space of the property to the best of our ability without creating a mini mansion. The second story addition was to provide additional living space, at the same time create views of the ocean while still being cognizant of the privacy to the adjoining neighbors. The second story addition consists of a master bedroom suite and balconies. If we can go to the site plan, which I think is the next sheet, you can see the existing site plan and the proposed site plan together. As you can see on the first floor addition, all we're doing is basically doing an infill between the existing residence and the existing detached garage, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't expand this building more than we needed to. And if we go to the elevations, you can see the comparison between the two buildings. The existing building is basically kind of a hodgepodge of different architecture and even different finishes. Some parts of the existing finishes are stucco and also with horizontal and vertical siding. And so we wanted to make it more consistent with their with the new architecture on there, and we wanted to make sure that we addressed recycling, reusability, and future solar uses for this building. The balcony closest to Santa Cruz is adjoining, has a solid wall. So if you could see, I guess that would be proposed elevation, west elevation there. And the reason why we had the small wall there was to provide privacy, both for the neighbors and also the clients. So that way they could have some privacy with their master bedroom suite on that second floor. The other balcony in the back really was just added to screen the AC unit and also to provide access to the viewing deck up on the roof. As far as the materials are concerned, the clients wanted to use a smooth stucco finish throughout And that would be white with white rails and stiles for the doors and the windows to match. The clients also chose a blue metal roof for durability, ease of maintenance, lightweight material, make sure it's recyclable, and also provides easier solar installation for the future. The site conditions will mainly be replacing the existing fencing with plaster and aluminum slats. I think we do have a materials board that we presented. It should be exterior colors or color board. Let's see. These are the existing pictures. There we go. So so that'd be the standing seam that we're using, proposed, and the sort of the style of the fencing that we're going to be replacing. The fencing that's going to be closest to the street side on the corner of the lot is going to be much shorter. So it's going to be a maximum of 42 inches high. And that will be basically a plaster wall with stone cap, probably a bluish color. And the project will be all electric and we'll have solar cell system installed with the battery backup. We wanted to make sure that we were cognizant of of making this as green as possible. So I believe that's my part. I know the owners would like to also speak, so.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to the board for allowing us to present our design plans for our remodeled home. We have three main goals that drove our design. Jonathan already mentioned some of them, but number one was to make our home both eco-friendly and energy efficient. Number two was to closely follow the city's guidelines for single-family residences. And the third one was to make the most of our views of the ocean and the mountains. So he's already shown you most of the pictures, but on page 1 of the PDF, we can show you what we designed to reach these goals. So on the first goal, to be both eco-friendly and energy efficient, we're going all electric with solar panels. So for the house, we're going to do a number of things: remove all the gas lines, install new electric appliances, fireplaces, and mini splits for heating and cooling, installing a metal roof because those are energy efficient, good for solar panel installation, and ultimately recyclable, and there are a number of those in our neighborhood. We're going to replace all the windows and doors with fiberglass ones where it's possible to get those. In the yard, we're going to remove all the concrete and use pervious materials, including the driveway, which is still in good condition. And as depicted on the second page of the PDF with the site plan, we're keeping all the healthy trees that are in the yard, along with replacing the two that we already have the city approval to remove. So although we don't show it on these plans, we're also adding many water-wise plants, BMP trenches, and some artificial turf to enhance the beauty of our yard while increasing its capacity to manage the storm water runoff, because our roof alone put us into tier 3. For our second goal, we literally studied the single family residence guide. And we think we've met or exceeded all of the neighborhood preservation guidelines. Keeping in mind that East Mesa is also sort of an eclectic neighborhood with many different architectural styles that seem to be the norm here. So on terms of consistency and appearance, all the outside will be new. We'll have a white smooth stucco siding for a cleaner look, fiberglass windows and doors, a solid garage door with windows along the top only, and new walls and fences that you saw depicted. These will greatly improve our home's current rundown appearance and mishmash of styles. We also, as we're on a corner lot on a circle, enhancing our house will also greatly enhance the look and feel of Santa Cruz Boulevard, Bayview Circle, and Pacific Avenue, all of which we border in East Mesa. As far as compatibility, we started out with a design that was actually over 85% FAR, which there are a number of houses near us that we found that were there, but we redesigned ours down to 84% to be less obtrusive. On the page 5 of the PDF, that shows where the second floor steps back on all sides to create a low profile like what's recommended in the guide. Our design is actually focused on that southwest corner for the ocean view, right down the street. We look right out over the Thousand Steps Beach Park. It also places the second floor at the maximal distance from all the neighbors' backyards. Our house is well under 25 feet in height, closer to 22 and a half, even with keeping our current 9-foot high ground floor ceilings and adding the second floor and a rooftop balcony. In terms of architecture and materials, we're going high quality with everything, energy efficient windows and new standing seam metal roofing, smooth stucco siding. The garage door is going to be new, quality fences and walls, permeable pavers everywhere, and other high-end finishes. For trees, we're keeping all the ones that are viable in the yard and adding some more. We already obtained the city's permission to replace the weeping fig, the ficus tree that's destroying our foundation, right, to pay to get that fixed. The Chinese elm near the driveway is deceased, so we also need to get that removed, and we have permission. In terms of public safety, health, and welfare, we're getting rid of our natural gas lines, trying to make the house as energy independent as possible with solar panels. And as Jonathan showed you, our design is staying on the same footprint except for that small area that we're using to attach the house to the garage, because right now it's detached. For the Good Neighbor Guidelines, as you know, these focus on privacy, landscaping, noise, and outdoor lighting, as well as talking to neighbors first, all the things that you're going through with this other project you just reviewed. So maximizing privacy for everyone is the key element of our design. The second floor and its main balcony are placed in the southwest corner, which is closest to the road and farthest from all the neighbors' backyards. And the balcony is well over 15 feet from the interior lot line to the south. All of our balconies have partial walls to block views into the neighbors' yards, and the south section of the front one was extended out from the house wall in order to eliminate any views of our neighbors to the south from inside our primary bedroom on the second floor. I want to point out too that Santa Cruz Boulevard to the west actually has a 13-foot 9-inch right-of-way between the road and before you even get to our 20-foot front yard setback. So the west portion of our second floor balcony is almost 30 feet from the road and over a patio inside of a 6-foot privacy fence. And then on page 6 of the PDF, the rooftop balcony, you'll see we ideally placed in the middle of the house. It's over 40 feet from our property lines in all 4 directions and recessed into the natural roof line with only a few horizontal wires visible from the front or the sides. And we've talked to our neighbors, and we're also going to increase the height of our fences to 8 feet between us and the closest neighbors to the south and the east, and they're both good with that. For landscaping, we're using all water-wise plants, established trees, and impervious materials. Extraneous noise for the adjoining properties will be limited because we're placing a low decibel AC unit on the garage facing, actually over our driveway as well. Second floor balcony to the east. The noise will help block the walls, and it's also 30 feet from the nearest neighbor. All of our outdoor lighting, we're going to recess into the eaves and point straight down to minimize its impact on any neighbors. As recommended by the city, we have already shared our design with our 10 closest neighbors. We walked around and handed it to them, and those with comments stated in writing back to us that they're fine with it. As far as public views, with a low profile, stepped back roof, step back second floor, many mature trees in our yard, our design is not going to impact any current public views and will blend in nicely with the neighborhood. Finally, as mentioned, we redesigned our house to enhance both our ocean and our mountain views. Almost all the views in our current single floor are blocked by walls. We moved windows and doors to maximize both of these views from within the house, even on the ground floor after the remodel. The planned second and third floor balconies and even the low profile spiral staircase are located to maximize our views while minimizing their impact on our neighbors. In particular, the ocean views we gain with the second floor addition will enhance the value of our property and the overall feel of the neighborhood without sacrificing anybody's privacy, which we consider to be a win-win for everyone. So to sum up, Ray and I have spent countless hours on our own figuring out how to best remodel our home that's from 1948 on its current foundation with a design that works for us, our neighbors, and for you, the design board. Ray's an engineer and I'm a researcher by training, so we're both detail oriented and very good at following rules and regulations and guidelines. We've explained our thought process behind our design choices. You don't have to read it now, but it's included as pages 17 and 18 in the PDF. So we truly believe that our design meets all of these goals simultaneously. It's extremely eco-friendly and energy efficient. It closely follows all of the single-family residence and neighborhood preservation guidelines, and it maximizes our views almost entirely within our existing footprint. So we hope that you love our design as much as we do, and we thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wow. Someone did their homework.
We did. We're very good students.
Ted, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you are attending my webinar and would like to give oral public comment on this project, please click the hand icon as shown on screen. While we wait for hands to raise, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any hands raised in the webinar currently. So Mr. Chair and board members, back to you.
All right, thank you. Bringing it back to the board. Board Member Kalas, do you have any questions, please? I have a unmute.
I unmuted, sorry. Kind of had a wow moment there too. That was quite a presentation, Ms. Oakes and Mr. Villegas. So could we take a look at, first of all, I have a question. Do we have any photos of the immediately adjacent neighbors? If we could look back at these. So are these the only photos that we have in the package, or are there additional photos?
There are more. There's a, Ray put together a graph that that even shows you where on the map.
And it's
he
got
was
a map with the
standing.
numbers that show which direction I took them from?
If you keep going, yeah, there
Right.
you see the numbers. And then if you look at the pictures that are actually numbered with those, it shows you where the picture was taken. So you
Okay,
have
so
all
if we could look at photos, can we go back to that key, please, that we had just a minute?
About 12 and 6.
I'd like to take a look at photos 4, 5, 10, 12, and 6, please. Could we, I'm sorry, are the captions denoting the photo below them or above them? So is number 4 201?
below. It's below. Like number 6 shows the house just to our.
The caption is
just our
above
east.
the picture.
Yeah, you can see our house here, the blue house with the funny garage. It's
Okay,
right-
so
yeah.
So Mr. Hamilton, if we could just zoom in on the upper right photo that we're looking at right now, please. Just trying to get a sense of the immediate neighborhood. Okay, and then the next photo, number 5, which is down 1 row and to the left. Okay, and then the one to the right of that, number 6, please. And this is the home that's immediately adjacent to yours, is that right?
Yeah, to
There's
the.
this-
That's correct. It's to the east.
Yeah, to the east.
Okay, thank
So
you.
you'll see our garage.
And then numbers 10 and 12 would be on a different sheet, I believe. Okay. And number 12, please. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we could go to the site plan now. Okay. So I would like, this is Santa Cruz and Pacific Avenue. Okay. So I was just looking at a satellite image on my phone of the property just to orient myself.
I think it's on the very first page of the PDF in the bottom corner. It has the overhead view with the neighborhood. Yeah, that one right there.
Okay, so the drawing is turned, I believe, 90 degrees relative to this in terms of orientation to the sheet. Is that right, Mr. Villegas?
Yes, yeah. We turned it
Okay.
there, but the north arrow is correct on there. So
Okay.
there's a
So,
project north and a true north.
okay. So the most proximate neighbor to this site is, I'll call it Page North. Is that correct? Or the one that would be to the, I'll call it the east. I would call it the east, but on this be to the north.
It'd be the project northeast and project north would be the two neighbors that are closest to this project.
Okay, and approximately how far away is the home that is to sheet north from the property line? Do we have a sense of that?
It should be called out on the property, on this sheet here.
Are you talking about over Pacific Avenue?
Yeah,
The one on the other side of Pacific Avenue or the one right beside us?
I'm talking
To
about.
our-
that sheet north. I think she's
Yeah.
talking.
Okay.
It's really to our east.
Okay, then it's 30 feet to the property line and that house is about 6 feet and the front of the house starts almost the front of our garage.
That lot's a long, narrow one compared to ours.
Okay, so the side of their residence is, I'm sorry, approximately how far from the property line?
It's a setback, 6 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, the garage is 6 feet from,
And then our garage is 6 feet from the property line, so
yeah.
we'll be at least 12 feet from it because we're
Okay.
not moving the garage.
Okay. Could we take a look at the elevations again, please? Or could you articulate which trees are being removed that were approved? Let's go back to the site plan for a second. I'm sorry, Mr. Hamilton.
Go to the other diagram to the left.
Slide to
The
the left.
existing, yeah.
The existing one. Okay, if you look at the north at the edge of the garage, you'll see a tree right at the edge of the garage. Yeah, right there. That's a diseased tree. It's on our property, but almost the majority of it leans over towards the neighbor. But the city has already said that's a diseased tree and we can cut it down.
Okay, and
And-
the other one is the ficus that's on the lower left of that drawing.
Right. It's the one right beside the house.
Yeah, it's huge part of the slab up, and the whole corner of that house has been lifted up in that corner by that ficus.
And the corner of the house is still, in that corner is about an inch and a half higher than the rest of the house. We fixed the concrete, but we couldn't fix the structure.
Yeah,
So
the
it's-
ficuses are a bit notorious for that.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I don't know who thought to plant it right outside the window. It was probably cute when they put it there, but
They grow very well in our climate.
I wish we could keep it. I mean, really, I like it, but
It's about 1.5 feet from the house.
yeah.
The trunk is about 1.5 feet.
And the trunk is this far around. I mean, it's huge.
Okay. And then if we could see the elevations now, Mr. Hamilton, sorry to have returned back to these. Can you just zoom in the top one there on the right, please? Okay, and if we could just pan down. I'm just trying to get a little bit better sense of. Okay.
We kind of sit down in a hole too, because where it goes around Santa Cruz, Bayview Circle to Pacific, well, I mean, basically we look out our front window now and we see cars drive back right through the middle of our window because we kind of sit down in a hole. So the profile from that site's gonna be low no matter whether we had 3 stories.
So this is the elevation that you would see from, I'm sorry, I don't have the floor plan in front of me. From Santa Cruz. And which, I guess it would probably be the north elevation, the one above us that you would see from the alternate street. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can we pan up there again for just a second, please? Okay, and the front door is the one that's on the Santa Cruz elevation, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, and the existing structure already has a man door in the same location that we're just replacing that door into that area on the Pacific. So
Okay. And are you proposing is that a glass garage door?
just the glass on top, and the rest of it's going to be metal, aluminum or something.
Okay, so it's just the post shade or the darker grade
That's the glass part.
sections.
Exactly.
Okay. Was there anything specific that drove the choice of the color for the metal seamed roofing that you've selected?
Yes, we looked at some houses in the Hope Ranch area and we saw some white houses with blue roof. And because the roof kind of goes with the ocean and we're really close to the ocean, and people who would be down at about our level, if they look up, they would be looking kind of towards the sky. So we went with the dark blue roof. That's how we got the color.
Okay.
And we figured that it would go well and we could find grayish blue stones to kind of match to complement that when we put them around the house.
Okay, and all of the railings you're proposing as well as the windows to be painted white? Did I hear that right?
The railing is going to be stainless steel, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like aircraft wire.
Aircraft wire.
Yeah, you won't really see it much.
Yeah.
Okay. I think those are the only questions that I have at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, you have on this elevation that we're looking at here, you have a setback of 20 feet that I assume is just the balcony that's over into it. Looks like about 5 feet into that 20-foot setback. Is that correct? 4 feet.
4 feet, yeah.
Is that,
It's above 7 feet, so I think it's considered all right on the, as far as the setback's concerned. But
Okay,
because it doesn't go down to the ground, but
got up on that code, if it's above 7 feet, you can
Yeah, there are actually plenty in this neighborhood. We've been looking at them specifically. We go around and look at all the houses, and a number of them have those second floor balconies that come out, particularly on the corners where they get a view of Shoreline Park or the water off in the distance and stuff. That's a really normal design in this neighborhood to have a balcony like that.
I'm not looking for a normal design or to you to take precedent over something else that you see. I'm looking just at code. And
well, I can say
if the code allows it, I won't carry it any further. But if the code doesn't allow it, and you have to set that back at the 20-foot setback, please do. No another comment. And
Mr. Chair, I can help out with that. The project was reviewed for application completeness, and part of that process is to make sure that what's proposed complies with the code. So the deck was reviewed and is found to comply with the code.
I'll keep that in mind when I want to put in a balcony. How far can that balcony encroach into the setback if it's above the required height? That's
Member Motisha, I'll have to check into that. I don't know off the top of my head, but I will get back to you.
Thank you. Okay, and when you said blue, I pictured a White House and a ocean blue, not an ocean blue, let's call it a aquarium blue. You're referring to
It's really dark. Can you
That's
see
it.
that? Yeah, it's
Refer-
Pacific blue. It's very dark. It's almost like black or, I mean, we've looked around here. People have dark bronze, they have gray, they have beige, and then the ones like we said we saw in Hope Ranch are dark blue. So it's not light like that color on that
It's
picture.
actually darker.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe I need more lighting in here, but
No,
it's a really dark blue.
Yep.
This is the Pacific blue on the back.
Okay, I'd have to see, when you come back, you're obviously gonna come back to us. I would like to see some color on the elevations to,
Okay. Yeah, you want to see
Yep.
what it look like? Got it.
that's all my questions. Sure, yeah, I'll have comments, but I think they're positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
Sherry, can you show us what the solar system looks like? I don't think I saw it.
Well, we're proposing the solar on that level. We haven't showed it yet on any of our elevations. And I don't believe that solar panels on a roof are even part of a design review. So
That's true.
They're not, so
it's in the future. No, we haven't designed it yet. We need to get a solar person out. We wanted to make sure you guys were happy with this design before we went that far.
okay, because I think there's a solar design, there's a roof design that's solar, isn't there? That
Yeah, that's by Tesla. but this
Tesla
is-
does it, right?
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
what you're talking about?
No. That's a shingled roof system. This is going to be a standing seam with the solar added on top of it. So.
Okay.
Almost all of it would go on the south facing side, which is the right side here.
Yeah, that would
and
make
then
sense.
on
Yeah.
the west. There's, I think on the very first picture, Jonathan, that you had, there was somewhere you indicated there were going to be solar panels.
Yeah, I kind of outlined it.
I think that one,
Yeah.
the picture he had.
Oh, that one did?
Yeah, the picture he had
Okay, I
shows
just missed it
where,
on that
where
one.
it would be,
Sorry.
but, we actually looked at the solar roofs, but they don't have a very good, reputation right now, or durability and stuff, and that's why we're going with the regular solar panels where we can control the electricity coming from each of the panels. Yeah, because we may have a little bit of shade from the trees in the back,
Yeah.
so that's one thing we're worried about. But yeah, this picture shows where we can put solar panels, I think.
I was just wondering, because I just put solar in my house, so I'm sort of wondering what your experience was.
We'll be able to tell you as soon as we put them on.
We'll let you know, come back to us on that.
Well, my experience has been good so far.
Yeah, I have solar and I have a Tesla battery on mine, and
Yeah, I have the Tesla battery in mine too.
it's great because we've had a couple power outages up here in the valley, and I
And
did not
nothing
know.
happens, right?
So.
Okay, guys, let's stick to the focus on the project. I have a dinner date tonight, so,
Ah,
okay. Let's see, was that your only question, Mr. Board Member Ziegler?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Can we go back to the site plan, please? Okay. Okay, the corner of the balcony on the bottom right there, what's the distance from the corner of the balcony to the property line?
At the very front, it's about 24 feet. And if you go to the back side of it, it's almost 29 feet. So it's depending on where you are, because the property line to the south is angled. So at the very front, it's almost 24 feet.
Because it doesn't, what's that crunching noise? Do you guys hear that?
Yeah. I thought it was my computer.
Everyone except the speaker could mute themselves, then that should solve the problem.
Okay, so what are this double? I see the post-shade deck, and then there's those double lines. What does that mean? I'm kind of confused. Is one the roof and one the back wall?
yeah, one is the balcony outline, and one is actually the second floor that's above. So.
Oh,
Yeah, because the second floor sits back a little ways from the exterior footprint of the building.
All right. Thank you. Those are my only questions. Let me go back to the comments. Board Member Colossus, do you have any comments?
I have a follow-up question before comments.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was a little bit confused because I see this one bedroom that's clearly sitting within setbacks, but that looks like it's an existing non-conforming condition. Is that correct?
Yeah, from 1948, it was built that way originally. We were wondering that ourselves too, like why did they let that go? But it is what it is. We're not changing that at all. We're keeping the existing spot.
And it's only gonna have roof above that, so.
Yeah.
Part of that has to do with when the real building department and zoning and everything came into effect here in town, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
we've noticed a lot of discrepancies, like our neighbor just to the south of us, her house actually sticks out 16 feet. It's like
It's got a
4
setback of
feet.
15 by its twin.
Yeah, so it's 5 feet into the setback, and maybe that was a side living garage at some point, but she uses it as her bedroom. So unfortunately, we have to look past that, but it seems to be grandfathered in.
okay. Can we look at the roof plan one more time, please? Okay. Okay. Let's see. I guess I'll say that the project, I think, is heading in the right direction. I appreciate the fact that the applicants have stepped back the second floor from the extent of the first floor. I would recommend considering possibly introducing a different way of covering. I think it's the outdoor covered area that's on the, well, it's west on the sheet right now, just north of the bedrooms that we were just talking about. If there's a way to treat that with a trellis or something that maybe isn't quite so integral to the roof, I think it may help break up massing a little bit and make the house feel a little bit more diminutive. I mean, relative to the existing homes kind of on that corner, with the exception of the one that I saw, this is going to be a relatively large house, even though I can appreciate your attempts to sort of minimize the massing of it by stepping it back. I am concerned about the blue color of the roof. I don't think that's consistent with the neighborhood. And while I can appreciate the fact that there are some homes locally that do have blue roofs, those were very period of a certain time in town. It was kind of 80s, 90s genre. There's one particular architect that was relatively well known that I think probably did many of those. And when I'm looking at the aerial view of the neighborhood, I'm not seeing anything that's consistent with that. So I would consider, I would suggest considering a different color for the roof. I think that the overall color scheme could use some more contrast. And I would like to see possibly some more detailing to the windows that are being proposed. But I realize that you're also approaching this from a very sort of clean, modern aesthetic. So that might not be appropriate. Like to see a landscape plan when you return. And I agree with Mr. Motisha that color renderings would be very helpful. Those are my comments at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Uh-oh, he's muted.
You're muted.
There you go. Thank you. Overall, I like the project. As far as our chairman, Mr. Miller, it doesn't, and I'm saying this with foot and mouth, that it doesn't kind of lean toward our Spanish heritage. And it leans more to a modern, quote, design.
It's an already existing house. How can you make it Spanish?
Now you're cutting hairs. Sorry. I note the setback. I questioned the setback, and it doesn't really about on the question in our questions. I questioned the setback, or not the setback, or the balcony being within the setback on the Santa Cruz side of the house. And now I have discovered, which I really can't see, that part of the existing house also sits within that, is within that setback. And I just looked at a floor plan and saw part of your master bedroom. I think it's the master bedroom, or what's underneath that deck sets back. Sorry. Right there. I'm looking at it right there. See that little on the corner?
That is Pacific Avenue side?
Not that. Sorry, not that. On Santa Cruz side. See that right there?
Oh, that was a proposed window that we have in the plan that isn't, if you look on the original, that was something that we added. That was what we added.
Yeah, that's just a window.
It's a
Yes,
window.
it's a setting window where you
Yeah.
could set,
Like a bay window.
Like a bay window.
yeah,
Like a
yeah,
bay
yeah, it's almost like a bay
It's
window.
a feature, it's a bay window.
Then I would like to, when you come back with your elevations, be a little bit more specific of lines, because those lines I didn't read that. So if I didn't read that, then there's something wrong with the lines that define a bay window as opposed to part of a building it is in that setback. Sorry.
It was just sort of a modern looking bay window, a little bit, so that sides weren't angled.
Right.
Down and define it. And call it a window and show it as a window. It doesn't show as a window. Okay, roof deck up on the 3rd floor. I like that. I like your roof deck. Your observation. It's not up there to be block of anybody's view behind you, and it gives you a view of the city, and a lot of the houses in the neighborhood would like to have that. And I would like to have it on my house. Yes, I agree with that 3rd story circular stairway to the roof deck. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
No, I just think Sherry thought out this solar system so perfectly that I'm really impressed with it, because she hasn't put it in yet and I've just been through it. So that's all I can say.
All right. So my comments, I'm kind of struggling with this deck. Looking at this site plan that turns the corner, that's kind of awkward to me. I guess that's the front entry there with the deck to the right like that. Can we see an elevation, please?
There's a
You mean
sidewalk
the-
to the front entry.
The front
Okay, so
door,
show me the front elevation. The front elevation, is that that one? Yeah. Okay.
that's an existing deck right now. We're not even changing it except to put pavers on it.
We're changing the deck to a patio.
It's a wood deck. It's
I'm
already
talking about
there.
the second deck, the second floor deck.
Oh,
Oh, the balcony.
Sorry, you're right. The balcony. So we have an ordinance that it's a recommended ordinance that the balcony be 15 feet from the adjacent property line. That's why I was asking about the dimensions. It wasn't clear to me whether that was or not on the balcony.
yes,
Yes.
both sides. It's 16 feet on one side and 24 to 29 on the other.
Okay, all right. And I have to disagree with Mr. Motisha. I can't support that roof deck. That looks like an awkward thing. And the spiral staircase, I think that's a very awkward, uncomfortable attribute to this building. So, and it just seems very awkward, and I just can't support that. So I think that roof deck shouldn't be there. I mean, that's.
We look at one right from our house, right across the street, 2 houses over. They've got a roof deck that's not thought out well. It's really ugly, and you can see all the way through it, and they look at everybody's yard right from it. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but those
Okay, I got it. Hold on. First off, I really appreciate what you've gone through and the homework you've done and really studying our design guidelines and stuff. So let's see. Can we go back to all the elevations? So if you look at the top elevation, so that looks real. That deck and spiral staircase looks very awkward to me. Like I said, I'm struggling with that. It just seems, and you're saying these other people have a roof deck. They probably didn't go before a review board for that. So I'm not, I don't know if I can.
Here's kind of the modern houses with the flat
Please,
roof.
let me speak, please. It's just me talking. So, like I said, I'm struggling with that, and I also think that deck on the second level that turns the corner is a little awkward in terms of the front entry. So that, I think those are my comments. I'm sorry. I know you guys love that roof deck, but I can't. That just seems a little weird to me. So those are my comments. So with that, let's see. They're here for project design approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that the project return to the full board. And the following comments, that the applicant consider restudying the upper balcony, or I'll call it the widow's walk, because that's what they used to be traditionally, in an effort to try to simplify it, that the applicant consider introducing divided lights or some sort of additional detailing to the windows to help articulate the fenestration better, that the applicant return with colored renderings or colored elevations at least, so that we can understand the proposed colors better. That, Mr. Hamilton, could you pan down so I can reference the correct elevation, please? That the applicant considers studying the west elevation relative to the second floor balcony. A possible solution would be extending the roof at the second floor out further so that the balcony does not appear to be hanging in midair, for lack of a better way of putting it. You might be able to bring the edge of, or the fascia forward of that balcony. It might help integrate it better. That the applicant consider an alternate color for the standing seam roof, and that they return with a landscape plan and tier calculations and a lighting plan for any exterior lighting. That's my motion. That would be an indefinite continuance.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I'll begin the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes?
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
To the board, can I
All right,
ask something?
Thank you.
What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure.
Or can I? Okay. I know you mentioned about trying to simplify something, the widow's nest, which the rooftop deck. We actually put it between the main framing of the house so that it would totally hide. So that the only thing that would show is wires. Is that right?
I'll tell you what, let me answer that. I think you should work with Jonathan. He's an excellent engineer and he'll know how to answer it and support what needs to get done.
Okay. All right, because the wires was just your safety issue with the, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we're getting the chewing again.
Sounds like somebody's playing poker. Shuffling.
Okay, all right, so moving on to item 3. I'm actually surprised this came to the full board, but anyway, 1917 Cleveland Avenue, request for reconsideration. Project design approval and final approval is requested. The proposal of a re-roof of a 1,283 square foot single unit residence and 400 square foot carport from gravel to standing seam metal in dark bronze. Fascias wrapped in Kynar metal and 5-inch box gutters with downspouts to match are also proposed. So I need to get, okay, reconsideration of the June 21st, 2021 motion for project design approval and final approval to remove the condition of approval requiring the standing seam metal roof seam to be 12 inches on center. Project design approval and final approval is requested to reconsider the standing seam metal roofing seam facing 18 inches on center as opposed to 12 inches on center as previously conditioned. The project requires neighborhood preservation findings in Hillside Design District and slope lot findings. The project was last reviewed June 21st. And I have to say on behalf of the client, we kind of screwed up on that. I apologize because we did approve the 18-inch, but the motion was 12-inch. So anyway, that's why they had to come back for reconsideration. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. And the reason you're seeing it on full board is because, as you know, the full board ratifies the approvals or the actions of the consent calendar. And so that's why it's before you. And yes, it is to reconsider the condition as you read it. And it's my understanding that during the consent review, there was discussion of both the 12 and the 18. So you are correct. Also, if there is a motion to reconsider and approve the 18-inch option, Mr. Chair, you would make it since you were one of the reviewers.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So these are the comments. Board Member Kloss, would you like to go through the comments from the previous meeting?
You'd like me to read those?
Not really. But for the record, yes, I think you better read them.
Okay. The applicant shall space the standing seam metal roofing seams 12 inches on center. Oh, I'm seeing Mr. Hamilton raise his hand.
Okay, good. Yes, please.
Sorry for the interruption. I wanted to clarify. Vice Chair Kloss, it's probably not necessary to read the entire minutes into the record.
Thank you.
I would note just the minutes that are relevant to this reconsideration.
Okay.
And that would be about it. You can even summarize the neighborhood preservation ordinance and the hillside design and slope lot criteria. You can just say that they have been met instead of reading through every item. So you can do an abbreviated version.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so project design approval and final approval with comments were made on consent. That the applicant shall space the standing seam metal roofing seams 12 inches on center. Hillside design and slope lot criteria were met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code and all of the related requirements therein, as well as the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria having been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara Municipal Code and all of the provisions and requirements therein.
Thank you. So, Ted, I think now I understand it. I don't think the client is here. What I just need to do is make a motion that the standing seam metal roof at 18 inches on center is acceptable, and it is a revision to the previous motion. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. And we do have a member of the applicant team, Robert Towery, here. In case you'd like to ask him any questions, but it should just be a simple, a simple motion. We will need to go through public comment as well. Okay. So I think the best procedure would just be to follow, the applicant presentation and see what it looks like, and then public comment, and you can make a motion.
Okay. So do we have public comment?
I'm unmuted, I guess. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So Robert Towery, Craig Roof Company, on behalf of Jan Wickland, the owner. When we got done, Chairman Miller, as you remember, you had made some suggestions about 12-inch on center, and then you said, I'm okay with the 18-inch, but with all the 12s and 16s and 18s thrown around, everything else in the meeting, by the time we got to that point, Katie made the motion for 12-inch. Right. The two of you voted, and that was basically, we hung up, and immediately Mr. Wickland called me and said, we looked around, we studied a lot of roofs, we looked at our house, and the consideration that our house, the way it's oriented to the street, we really want the 18-inch. 12 inch is too busy in our opinion. And so basically I said, okay, then let's go back. We talked to Barbara Burkhardt. She said, we'll have to put it back on the board. And that's why we're here today. As you can see, 18 inch is very popular. The previous applicants at Santa Cruz also wanted 18 inch. I looked all over the city, drove around, looked at over a dozen standing seam roofs, found 18 inch on center, found some 16 inch and found some 12s. I found the 12s to be very busy myself. And from a roofing standpoint, it does increase the potential for leakage 50%. And so from an 18 inch. And so their house is, you look over the top of it, the roof ribs will be perpendicular to the street, or parallel with the street, excuse me. So you really won't be able to tell from the street. The only neighbor, as we discussed before, to the west of them that looks down on the roof, they're the only ones that actually will see the roof in any detail, how the house is oriented. So as I stated, Jan and his wife spent a lot of time. They're going to spend quite a bit of money on this roof, and they really desire to have the 18 inch. And so that's the only reason we're back here. Everything else was totally agreed with everything that was commented. And here we are. So if you have any questions for me, the house basically sorry, my wife she doesn't think I'm still in a meeting this late, but anyhow, do you have any questions for me? I don't know that I need to go back through the entire presentation again.
No, you're fine. If the board has questions, they will ask you. So if that's the conclusion of your presentation, I'll move forward.
Okay.
So do we have public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no attendees by webinar currently, so I'll just ask Ms. Fennessy whether we received any written correspondence on this item.
We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair and board members, back to you.
Thank you. Board Member Kloss, do you have any questions, please?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Board Member Motisha looks MIA. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
No, thank you.
Oh, there you are. Mr. Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
Thank you. Moving back, I have no questions either. Moving back to the board for comments. Board Member Kloss, do you have any comments, please?
I would be fine with a 16 or an 18-inch. I agree that the 12-inch is generally too busy. I find the 16 to generally be attractive, but I'm amenable to either.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
No comments.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
I have 18 on my house and I like it.
So the only comment is I did agree with 18. It's a very contemporary house. I believe it was built in the early 60s, if I'm not correct, or even the 50s perhaps.
Right.
And so this particular, I would realize that that would work really compatible with this type of home. So I could support the 18-inch as well. And that's actually what I said, but like Mr. Tari said, it got lost in the shuffle. So that said, I want to entertain a motion to revise the motion that the standing metal seam roof have an 18 inches on center seam as corrected from the 12 inches. And that's my, okay, man. Is that adequate, Ted?
Mr. Chair and board members, I believe you do need to make the findings again.
Okay.
However, in this case, if the only thing that is changing is the design of the roof, I believe it would be appropriate to simply state findings made as stated in, whenever the previous meeting was, and then amend it with a comment to accept the currently proposed roof design.
Okay, so the motion is to reconsideration of the June 21st motion that the standing metal seam roof have 18 inches on center seam, and that all the slope lot, sill-sign district, and slope lot findings are comply. As based on the previous motion. And that's my motion.
And if you need a second, I will second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I will now begin the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes?
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, board.
All right, thank you.
Have a good evening. Make that dinner date.
Thank you. And there's a 10-day appeal period. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, that concludes the Single Family Design Board for July 6, 2021. Thank you very much. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.